Title: Natural Hair, Unnatural Bias, A Story of Courage. Aaliyah Davis isn't just any high school student. At 16, she's a well-known figure at Westfield High, celebrated for her academic excellence and her leadership in various school clubs. Her radiant smile and quick wit make her popular among friends and respected by teachers for her drive and intelligence. But more than that, Aaliyah stands out because she embraces her identity, her natural hair worn proudly in a voluminous afro or intricately braided styles, a part of her expression she's grown to love deeply. However, life at Westfield isn't always smooth. Some teachers and administrators, while subtly polite, often make snide or veiled comments about her appearance. They call her hair unprofessional during assemblies or question whether it's appropriate for certain school events. Despite these microaggressions, Aaliyah never compromises. She knows her worth and understands that her hair is an intrinsic part of who she is, representing the strength of her culture and her ancestors. Still, it's exhausting to constantly defend something so personal. One morning, Aaliyah stands in front of her bathroom mirror, carefully separating her thick, coiled hair into sections. Her hands move rhythmically as she twists each strand into tight braids, her fingertips brushing over her scalp. It's an important day. She's presenting her project on climate change, and she wants to look her best. She's practiced her speech for days, stayed up late finalizing her slides, but no matter how much she preps, she knows some people won't see her hard work, they'll only see her hair. As she finishes braiding, she pauses, admiring herself in the mirror. Her hair is her crown, her connection to her roots, and she's proud of it, no matter what anyone else thinks. She puts on her favorite hoop earrings, grabs her backpack, and heads downstairs to meet her mom. "Looking good, baby," her mom says, eyeing her braids. "Are you ready for today?" Aaliyah smiles and nods, though there's a nagging feeling in her chest. She's ready for the presentation, but not for the whispers that always come when she wears her hair out or in braids. The stares from teachers, the awkward comments like, "Wow, your hair is so big today," and then there's Mr. Harris, the principal, with his forced smile and his habit of watching her like she doesn't belong. She shrugs off these thoughts. Today is about showing the world what she can do, not worrying about people who don't understand. The school is already buzzing with activity when Aaliyah arrives. She greets her friends with her usual enthusiasm, her bright personality drawing smiles from everyone around her. She loves school most of the time. Being part of the debate team and the student council gives her a sense of purpose, and she's built a tight-knit group of friends who understand and support her. But as she walks into class, she feels the shift. A few heads turn toward her braids, and she hears a whisper, "Here we go again." Again, she thinks, but she's not here for their opinions. The day passes quickly, each class bringing her closer to her presentation. By the time the bell rings for her last class, Aaliyah's nerves begin to tingle. She heads to the front of the room, confident and composed, her slides loaded onto the screen, projecting the first slide with bold words spelling out the climate crisis, a call for action. She takes a deep breath, allowing the nervous energy buzzing in her chest to settle into something more grounded. This is the moment she's been preparing for, and despite the nerves, she feels ready. She glances at her teacher, who gives her an encouraging nod, and then she begins. "Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about climate change, a crisis that's affecting all of us and one that demands immediate action. Whether we acknowledge it or not, our planet is in trouble, but the good news is that there are steps we can take as individuals and as a society to slow the damage and create a more sustainable future." Her voice is calm, clear, and confident as she launches into her introduction. Alia has always been a good speaker, and standing in front of a room full of her classmates, she feels the familiar rhythm take over. She's rehearsed this presentation countless times, alone in her room, in front of her mom, even in the mirror that morning as she braided her hair. The material is ingrained in her mind, each slide and each point flowing seamlessly into the next. Her classmates sit in quiet attention, some take notes, others fix their eyes on her. Even those who typically fidget or whisper during presentations are focused. Climate change is a topic everyone knows about, but Alia is determined to make them understand it in a deeper way. She wants them to feel the urgency she feels, to recognize the responsibility their generation has in addressing the issue. Her voice doesn't waver as she lays out the facts, clicking through graphs showing the rising global temperatures, the alarming increase in CO2 emissions, and the shrinking ice caps. Each statistic feels like a weight pressing down on the room as her classmates take in the enormity of the problem. But this isn't just about the environment, she says, pausing for emphasis as she switches to the next slide. A photo of a flooded village in Bangladesh fills the screen. It's about people, real people who are losing their homes, their livelihoods, their entire way of life because of climate change. And many of the people most affected are those in marginalized communities, people of color, indigenous populations, and low-income families who often contribute the least to the problem but suffer the most from its consequences. Alia lets those words sink in, her eyes scanning the room. She can see the impact her words are having. Some students shift in their seats, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. This is the part of the presentation she cares about most, not just the numbers and the science, but the human element. Climate change isn't an abstract concept, it's a crisis that affects real lives, and Alia wants her classmates to understand that they, too, have a role in addressing it. We have a responsibility to take action, she continues, her voice growing more passionate as she clicks to the next slide. And it starts with awareness, but awareness alone isn't enough. We need real change, systemic change, and that requires all of us to get involved. We can't just wait for our leaders to solve this problem, we have to demand action from our governments, our corporations, and even from ourselves. The next slide displays a list of practical steps individuals can take to combat climate change, reducing waste, conserving energy, supporting renewable energy initiatives, and pushing for policy changes at local and national levels. I know sometimes it feels like we are powerless to stop something as big as climate change, Alia says, her tone softening slightly. But every action counts. Even small changes, when done by millions of people, can make a big difference. And young people, our generation, are leading the fight. We are the ones who will inherit this planet, so it's up to us to protect it. She moves smoothly through the next set of slides, highlighting the successes of youth-led movements around the world. She talks about young activists like Greta Thunberg, who have inspired millions of students to strike for climate action, and how grassroots movements are pushing governments to take the climate crisis seriously. She clicks to the final slide, which displays a simple, powerful message: the time to act is now. Alia pauses for a moment, letting the weight of those words settle over the room. She can see the faces of her classmates, some wide-eyed, others with furrowed brows, all taking in the urgency of her message. This is why she chose this topic, why she worked so hard on this presentation. It wasn't just about getting a good grade, it was about inspiring real change. We don't have time to wait, she says, her voice steady and sure. The decisions we make today will shape the future of our planet. We have the power to create a more sustainable world, but it starts with each of us making the choice to care, to act, and to demand better. Climate change is the biggest challenge our generation will face, but it's also our biggest opportunity. Let's make sure we are on the right side of history. With that, she clicks off the projector and looks out at the room. There's a brief, stunned silence, and then her teacher starts clapping, followed quickly by the rest of the class. The applause is louder than she expected, filling the room with a sense of shared purpose. Alia feels a surge of pride, not just in her performance but in the fact that she's delivered a message that matters. Her presentation wasn't just about information, it was a call to action, and from the looks on her classmates' faces, it's clear she's made an impact. As she returns to her seat, her heart still pounding with adrenaline, Alia allows herself a small smile. She's done more than just give a speech, she's sparked a conversation, one she hopes will continue long after the class ends. But her celebration is short-lived. A minute after she sits down, Mr. Harris enters the room, his eyes narrowing slightly as they land on Alia. "Miss Davis," he says in a low, controlled voice, "could I see you in my office?" Alia blinks in surprise. Her classmates shoot confused glances at each other, and a knot forms in her stomach. "What could I have done?" As she follows him down the hallway, the feeling of unease deepens. When they enter his office, Mr. Harris closes the door behind them and sits down at his desk, his expression unreadable. "Alia," he begins, folding his hands on the desk, "I've received some complaints about your appearance today, specifically your hair." Alia's heart sinks, but she keeps her face steady. "My hair?" "Yes, the school has a dress code, and I'm afraid your hair is in violation of it. It's too distracting, it's not professional, and it's not in line with the image we want to project here." Alia's mouth goes dry. "Mr. Harris, my hair is part of who I am. It's not a distraction." Mr. Harris sighs as if this were a tiresome conversation he's had too many times before. "I understand that, but we have rules here. You're a bright student, but this isn't about you personally, it's about maintaining a standard." Alia feels her chest tighten with frustration. "So what, you want me to change my hair?" "I've followed the dress code, my hair is neat and styled." "How is that a problem?" He leans back in his chair, his gaze cold and flinching. "I'm not asking, Alia. Either you fix it by tomorrow, or you'll face consequences." Alia stares at him in disbelief. She can feel the heat rising in her cheeks. This isn't just about her hair, it's about the message it's sending. Her culture, her identity, is being treated like it doesn't belong, and she won't let that slide. "I'm not changing my hair," she says, her voice shaking with anger. "This is who I am." Mr. Harris's eyes harden. "Then you're suspended, effective immediately." The news of Alia's suspension spreads through the school like wildfire. By the time she leaves the office, students are whispering in the halls, and her phone buzzes non-stop with texts from friends. Some are supportive, outraged on her behalf, others seem unsure, asking if she's really been suspended just for her hair. She heads straight home, her mind spinning. Her parents are furious when she tells them what happened. Her father, a calm and thoughtful man, sits down at the kitchen table, his face tense with disbelief. Her mother, however, is ready to fight. "They can't do this to you," her mom fumes. "They think they can push us around because we're black, but we're not backing down. We'll fight this." Alia sits quietly, feeling a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of injustice. She's worked so hard to get where she is, to be a model student, yet she's being punished for simply existing as her true self. As her parents discuss their next steps, Aliyah stares at her reflection in the kitchen window. Her braids frame her face like armor, and she knows she can't let them break her spirit. "I'm not backing down either," she whispers to herself, a spark of determination igniting within her. The days following Aliyah's suspension are a whirlwind of emotions. She sits in her room, staring at the messages piling up on her phone. Some classmates are supportive, telling her to stay strong, while others echo the school's narrative, suggesting she should have just complied to avoid trouble. Her closest friend, Maya, sends a text, "This is so unfair, Aliyah. You know we've got your back." But even with her friends behind her, Aliyah feels isolated. There's a dark cloud hanging over her, a feeling of being singled out, and no matter how much love she receives, it can't erase the humiliation of being told that who she is, her very identity, is wrong. Aliyah's parents, however, are on fire. They've contacted a lawyer almost immediately, and her mother spends every evening on the phone with local community groups, stirring up support. At the dinner table, Aliyah's father speaks up with his usual calm authority, "We're not letting this slide. This isn't just about your hair, it's about discrimination. If they think they can get away with this, they are wrong." Her mother nods, frustration etched into her face. "They want us to shrink, to bow down and make ourselves small to fit their standards, but we are not going to be quiet about this. Aliyah, you're not alone in this fight." Aliyah appreciates her parents' fierce determination, but she can't shake the feeling of being targeted. In her heart, she just wants to go back to being a normal student, but how can she now, with the whole school buzzing about her suspension? She's been painted as a troublemaker, a rebel, when all she wanted was to be herself. Aliyah sits across from the lawyer, Ms. Turner, in her office. The woman is sharp-eyed and direct, her presence commanding. She wastes no time in explaining the gravity of the situation. "Your case is clear-cut racial discrimination," Ms. Turner says, her voice firm. "The fact that your hair, a natural part of your cultural identity, is being labeled as distracting and unprofessional is unacceptable. The law is on your side." Aliyah sits quietly, absorbing her words. Ms. Turner continues, "We're going to file a complaint against the school for racial discrimination, but we'll need to build a strong case. Do you remember any other incidents where students of color were treated unfairly because of their appearance?" Aliyah thinks for a moment, her mind drifting back to moments she'd brushed aside before. She remembers how, in 9th grade, one of her classmates, a black boy named Jamal, was sent home because his hair had been too long, even though white students with longer hair weren't punished. She mentions this to Ms. Turner, and the lawyer's expression sharpens. "Good," Ms. Turner says, scribbling notes. "This isn't just about you, Aliyah. This is part of a pattern, and we are going to expose it." As the case moves forward, Ms. Turner and her team start digging deeper into Mr. Harris's history. Aliyah had always had a gut feeling that something was off about the principal. He was too polite, too controlled, and his comments about her hair weren't the first time he'd made her feel unwelcome. One evening, Aliyah's mother storms into the living room, holding up a printed report, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Aliyah, you won't believe this," she says. Aliyah's father puts down his newspaper and looks over. "What is it?" Her mother hands him the papers. Miss Turner found something about Mr. Harris's past. He was involved in a major scandal at another school. Aliyah leans in, curious and apprehensive. "What kind of scandal?" Her mother shakes her head in disbelief. "He was part of a school district accused of targeting black students for excessive discipline." There were reports that he even suggested banning black hairstyles like braids and afros, claiming they were too distracting and didn't fit with the school's uniformity policy. Aliyah feels a cold chill run down her spine. What happened to him? Her father reads through the papers, his face hardening with each line. It says here that the school board covered up most of it. They settled with the families out of court, and Mr. Harris quietly transferred here. Aliyah's mind reels. All this time, she thought the issue with her hair was an isolated incident, but it's clear now that Mr. Harris has a long history of punishing black students for simply existing. This changes everything, her father says, standing up. This isn't just about one suspension, this man has a pattern, and we are going to make sure the public knows it. It doesn't take long for the news to explode. After Ms. Turner's team files the lawsuit, journalists pick up the story. Headlines splash across local news outlets: high school students suspended for natural hair, discrimination lawsuit filed, principal's dark past revealed, and a scandal in former school comes to light. Aliyah's phone is flooded with messages, not just from friends but from people she doesn't even know, other black girls, activists, even reporters wanting to interview her. Her suspension has ignited a firestorm, and her case has become the focal point of a growing movement. On social media, the hashtag #StandWithAliyah begins trending, with thousands sharing their own stories of being discriminated against for their natural hair. The natural hair movement, already strong, has found a new cause in Aliyah's fight. She stares at her phone, watching the flood of support come in. It's overwhelming, but it also gives her a sense of purpose. This isn't just a battle anymore, it's a fight for everyone who's been told they don't fit because of how they look. The atmosphere at Aliyah's school is tense. Students and teachers alike are buzzing with opinions. Some teachers try to avoid talking about it, but others take sides, either supporting Aliyah's right to express her identity or quietly agreeing with Mr. Harris's stance on professionalism. In the halls, students are divided too. Some openly wear their hair in afros, braids, and other natural styles in solidarity with Aliyah, while others whisper behind her back, blaming her for causing drama or claiming she's exaggerating the issue. The news about Mr. Harris's past has changed everything. What started as a personal battle for Aliyah has become a symbol of systemic discrimination. Her family's home is now buzzing with phone calls and emails from activists, reporters, and supporters from across the country. The lawsuit against the school has gained traction, and Aliyah's story is quickly becoming a national headline. One evening, as Aliyah sits with her parents in their living room, the TV flickers with a segment about her case. Images of Aliyah, smiling and confident with her braids, flash on the screen next to footage of protests outside the school. Parents and students are holding signs that read, "Our hair, our identity, and end discrimination." Aliyah's mother looks at her with pride. "You've started something bigger than we ever imagined, sweetheart." Aliyah nods, her heart full but heavy. It feels surreal, the whole world seems to be watching now. She receives messages from girls who tell her they've been sent home for wearing their natural hair or disciplined for braids and locks. Her story has become their story. Aliyah isn't just fighting for herself anymore, she's fighting for every black girl who's ever been told they were unprofessional for embracing their natural hair. Her lawyer, Ms. Turner, had warned them that the school would try to push back hard. They would likely deny everything and spin the narrative in their favor, but Aliyah's family is prepared for the battle. They've gathered statements from former students at Mr. Harris's previous school, as well as current students who've witnessed discrimination firsthand. But the most damning evidence is the documents Ms. Turner's team uncovered, emails from the school board showing how they tried to cover up Mr. Harris's past, brushing the scandal under the rug to preserve their reputation. These revelations fuel the fire of public outrage. Social media plays a massive role in Aliya's case. The hashtag #StandWithAliya is now exploding on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, with influencers and activists rallying behind her cause. A viral video montage begins circulating, showing Aliya confidently walking into school juxtaposed with clips of students from all over the country wearing their natural hair with pride. People of all ages, celebrities, politicians, and regular students are chiming in, calling for an end to policies that punish black students for their natural hair. The movement taps into a larger conversation about systemic racism in schools, and Aliya finds herself at the center of it all. One afternoon, while scrolling through her notifications, Aliya sees a video from a young girl named Kira. The girl, who couldn't have been more than 12, is holding her head high as she walks through her middle school halls with her afro out, smiling with confidence. In the caption, Kira writes, "Thank you, Aliya, for showing me that I can be proud of who I am." Aliya feels tears welling up in her eyes. It's moments like this that remind her why she can't give up. Her fight is bigger than she'd ever imagined. As the public outcry grows louder, the school district begins scrambling to control the damage. They release a statement insisting that Aliya's suspension had nothing to do with race or her hair but rather a violation of the dress code. They frame it as a misunderstanding, claiming they support diversity and inclusivity, but the damage is already done, no one is buying it. The pressure on the school intensifies, especially after more students begin coming forward with stories of discrimination. A black student named Tasha shares how she was forced to straighten her hair for the school yearbook photo, while another student, Malik, speaks out about being told his dreadlocks were gang-related. Each story paints a clearer picture of a school system that punishes black students for expressing their cultural identity. The school board is now in full crisis mode, trying to suppress the fallout, but it's too late. Activists begin organizing protests outside the school, crowds gather with signs, chanting for justice, demanding that the school drop its discriminatory policies and take accountability for their actions. The media can't ignore the growing movement, and soon national news channels are covering the protests, putting even more pressure on the district. The tension reaches a boiling point when a protest is organized directly outside the school's front gates. Hundreds of students, parents, and community members gather, holding signs and chanting for change. Aliya is there too, standing in the middle of the crowd, feeling the surge of energy around her. That's when she sees Mr. Harris, standing just inside the school's entrance, watching the protest unfold. His usual calm demeanor is gone, replaced by a tight, anxious expression. He tries to maintain control, but Aliya can see the weight of the scandal is starting to crush him.